Marcus Lamb cheated on Joanie Lamb, and it wasn't just a single lapse in judgment. The affair went on for 7 years. That's an incredibly long time to endure betrayal, especially in a marriage that was meant to be founded on faith and Christian principles. Throughout those 7 years, and even after it was over, Jonathan was extremely disappointed that he was not named the future president of DAYSTAR following the death of his father.
My name is Denise Boggs. I was a friend of the Lamb family. And I want to tell you what happened just 2 days before Marcus passed.
I made the choice. I was wrong. It's my fault, and I'm so sorry I did.
Sure, on camera, they held hands, prayed together, and presented the image of a perfect marriage. That's DAYSTAR's brand, maintaining the appearance of a strong Christian couple. But behind the scenes, it was a completely different reality. Joni was deeply hurt, shattered by betrayal. No matter how much she smiled to the audience, the truth was that her marriage was never the same again. And that explains why, on his deathbed, Marcus didn't turn to Joni, his own wife, to share his final wishes regarding DAYSTAR. Instead, he reached out to Denise Boggs, the family counselor. Now, really think about this. If there was true love and trust in a marriage, wouldn't a husband's dying words be spoken to his wife? Wouldn't she be the one he confided in about something as significant as the future of DAYSTAR? But that's not what happened. Just 2 days before he passed, Marcus made a call to Denise. And in a moment, I'm going to let you hear exactly what he said. I won't lie. I have so many questions about this audio because what Marcus told Denise doesn't align at all with what Joanie Lamb claims were his final words about DAYSTAR. So, who's telling the truth? Let's take a closer look.
Jonathan was extremely disappointed that he was not named the future president of DAYSTAR. Following the death of his father, that Marcus had given a clear directive to the family and to the board that I would succeed him as president. Jonathan's disappointment in not getting his way only deepened when I married Dr. Doug Weiss.
My name is Denise Boggs. I was a friend of the Lamb family. And I want to tell you what happened just 2 days before Marcus passed. I received a call, and the call was him on the other line. He had one of his girls to dial my number. And he said, Miss Denise, I need you to write some things down for me. I said, okay, Marcus, I'll be glad to. And he said, you know, Joni and I have built DAYSTAR, but I really believe it's time for me to say that we built it so the children could carry it on. And I said, okay. And he said, did you write that down? I said, yes. And then he said, well, first of all, there's our son, Jonathan, and he would be the first one that needs to step in and carry things on. He's the first lamb.
Jonathan was extremely disappointed that he was not named the future president of DAYSTAR.
And then there's his wife, Susie. She took his name, Susie Lamb, and she'll be beside him to support him. I said, okay. And then he said, and then there's Rachel Lamb Brown, and she will be beside him on the other side, helping him to keep everything going. And I need to make sure now you're writing it down. Yes, Marcus, I'm writing it down. And then he said, then there's Rebecca Lamb Weiss. And she will be like on the other side, like Aaron and her, holding up Jonathan's arms. And her husband, Jonathan Weiss, will be alongside her to help her. Are you writing that down? He said. I said, yes, Marcus, I'm writing it down. And so when he finished, I knew he had left someone out, but I did not say anything. And I knew that there was some deep pain, because of what had happened in the family. And I knew that that's probably why he did not mention Joshua Brown. But I did not question him on that. This was his time to speak from his heart and not be controlled or manipulated in any way. And I said, okay, I've got it all written down. And he said, okay, thank you. You make sure it gets where it needs to go. I said, okay, I will. And so he hung up the phone, or he had someone else to hang it up. And then I did submit it to different family members. I told Joni about it. I told Rachel and I told Rebecca about what had happened. So they all knew.
I clearly remember hearing Marcus say on TV multiple times that he was preparing Jonathan to take over DAYSTAR one day. I watched it myself and heard him say it without a doubt. So how did everything change so drastically? How does a mother turn against her own son and push him out of the very ministry his father had been grooming him to lead? And all of this just because of her new marriage? What's the real reason? Because he refused to sign an NDA? That's truly heartbreaking. Honestly, I keep wondering, why didn't Denise Boggs record that phone call with Marcus? That conversation wasn't just a casual chat. It was about his legal wishes for his family and the future of DAYSTAR. If an audio recording existed, no one could twist the truth. But even without it, one thing is clear. Marcus knew Joni wouldn't have the strength to do what was right. That's exactly why he confided in Denise instead. And even though there's no recording, I believe her. You can just feel the sincerity in her words. She genuinely loves God and isn't trying to gain anything from this. She's simply telling the truth. She is a true woman of faith, and it's evident in everything she says and does. One major thing we can't ignore is that Marcus spoke to Denise over the phone, not through email. And that's important because emails can be easily faked. Scammers do it all the time, making messages appear as if they came from someone they didn't. So if there's some email floating around claiming to be from Marcus, I'd be very skeptical.
DAYSTAR made the decision to terminate my son Jonathan Lamb's employment. That decision was not taken lightly. It followed a 15-month review of Jonathan's performance and his refusal to take any steps to satisfy a detailed performance improvement plan put in place. He also refused my offer to participate in a formal mediation to resolve grievances in a biblical and professional manner.
Joanie Lamb claimed that Jonathan rejected her offer to resolve things in a biblical and professional way. But when you actually look at the leaked documents, it's clear that her version of events doesn't match up with reality. One of the conditions she gave Jonathan and Susie was that they would keep disagreements about theological opposition to the marriage to themselves privately. Now, let's be honest. The Christian community already knows that Doug Weiss and Joni's marriage was not done the right way. There was nothing biblical about it. So, was this really about biblical resolution, or just about forcing silence? And it doesn't stop there. The document also states that Jonathan and Susie will keep disagreements about Doug's divorce to themselves privately. But the real argument wasn't just about whether Doug's divorce had biblical grounds. It was about the shady way the whole thing happened. Something about it felt off from the start. And now, they were being told they weren't allowed to question it. Then there's this part. Jonathan was expected to acknowledge the marriage, support Joni in it, and accept Doug as her husband. He was required to keep any disagreements about the marriage private and never express any negative feelings or opinions about Jimmy Evans publicly. But how exactly was this a biblical way to resolve things? This wasn't about healing or reconciliation. It was about control. Jonathan and Susie weren't invited into a discussion to work things out. They were being ordered to comply. They were expected to stay silent, accept everything without question, and act as if nothing was wrong. This wasn't a path to unity. It was a demand for submission. At the end of the day, Joni wanted to be seen as the sole voice of God in this situation. In her mind, Jonathan and Susie were simply supposed to fall in line. To wrap this up, it's undeniable that Marcus intended for Jonathan to take over DAYSTAR, not for Joni to push him out, which is exactly what she and Doug Weiss ultimately did. She wasn't looking to pass the torch to her son. She wanted control for herself and her new husband.